All right, Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. I had to say that very specifically because I think I've been saying The Road Less Taken for years. Like, you gotta take the road less taken, I think is what I always say.
Is that the saying?
I think so.
Oh.
I think it came from this poem.
It has to have. Bobby would be mad at you.
I'm giving him credit, even if it did come from something else. Argue with me if you want.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, I wrote down some notes. So for those of you that didn't know, I just got back from a nightmarish 25 hours traveling. Marooned at multiple airports, didn't know where the bags were, had to stay in the air an hour longer because the storms were so bad. And then we were stuck on the tarmac for an hour and a half, slept like 3.5 hours, paid twice the price of a hotel. Okay, enough complaining. I took some solace in this is what I'm going to tell you right now. I took some notes. I'm not sure I understand them anymore because it was a little bit of a long and delirious day, but I'm going to try to explore these with you if you will allow me to, and maybe pose some questions to you if that's okay.
That sounds great. I think your journey is exactly the type of reaction that someone should have after reading this poem. They intertwine well. I like it.
Well, because how I tell my story matters, right? And I'm going to get into that right now. Here's where I got stuck on this poem, if this makes sense. Actually, you know what? We should do a quick reading of it, and then we'll jump into this. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
There's your less traveled. You found it.
Thus, it is less traveled. Maybe it's because people just quote that last part. They don't actually quote the poem itself. That's the problem. All right. Here's what triggered me. Okay, I'm reading this poem. I'm sure I read it in high school. I don't remember it. Okay, but I'm reading this, and there's this line: "I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Right? That's what you hear all the time. You take the less traveled road, you might come upon some new adventures, you're going to discover something new. Don't follow the sheep. Like, that's what you hear all the time, right? And it's the closer, right? But when you're reading this poem, the speaker, the narrator says, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. Right? Like we see the leaves, they're not trodden black, meaning nobody has really walked down those paths. The grass looked the same. I'm like, is this guy tripping? Like, he's telling me these paths are really about the same, but then later comes back and says, I took the one less traveled. Like, did you notice that when you were reading it?
I was also a little confused, and it also angers me he says, well, I travel this one, and then I travel the other, and then, you mean he took the less traveled one all the way? He went on both? Like, if this is supposed to be some type of analysis, if this is supposed to be some type of allegory for life, you get one choice. I don't think you can go back and redo anything. At least I don't think time travel has been invented yet. So yeah, I'm a little confused of what Frost was kind of referencing of, well, I thought about it, or I looked that way and then made my choice for the path less traveled. I don't know.
I think what you're talking about is that the second stanza then took the other as just as fair, right?
Yeah.
Which looked just like, so the first stanza is he looked down these 2 paths, one, and then he looked down the other and it looked just about the same. So I interpret it as that he didn't walk both paths, but he's like looking at both at that point in time. It's how I read it.
Okay, that's fair.
Because it was grassy and it wanted wear, but that is why we took the road less taken, even though they're about the same. It just drove me nuts. And maybe this is overthinking it. We're guilty of that. I take that pill quite easily, trust me. But I feel this is one of those stories where we have two ways of explaining the truth. Okay? Bear with me on this one. So, does truth depend upon A, contextual difference, or B, retrospective bias? Is my first question. And I thought we could explore both of these separately because I think it might be a little bit of A, a little bit of B. But I think, sometimes when we look at our past, we always want to be the hero, right? I think that's human nature, no matter where truth lies. We always want to be the hero. But then the question is how that story is told, I think.
You're being just like Robert Frost, making me pick a little of A and a little of B. No, you get one answer, Una. You get A or B. You can't have both.
Okay, fine. You got to pick one by the end of this. That's my challenge to you who are listening to us. Play along. Tell me which one you think leads to the actual truth. All right, you ready? So A, does truth depend upon contextual differences? And when I say this, if the roads were the same, as we think he has stated in the opening paragraphs, why can't we admit it? Why is it that if there's an actual difference, and like when we're telling a story, we sometimes leave out certain facts because we want one way to appear better than the other?
I think it comes a lot down to perspective. As you look at the choices that you're going to make in life, it really depends on what is happening in the moment. It also depends on the significance of the choice. If the choice is something minor, then we really don't think about it. I mean, do you really put all that much thought into what you're going to wear or the route you're going to take to work? You put a lot of thought into maybe what you're going to name your child, where you're going to get married, who you're going to marry. There are these levels of decision making in your life. And I think for me, one of the things I tried to take from the poem was, should you take all of them as monumental or all of them as minor? It just, every choice in life is a minor choice, or every choice in life is a major choice.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my question also comes not just because your response there was very individualistic. What does this mean to me? But I guess my thought experiment here is more social, where why does my choice matter and my context matter to others? A good example, I guess, let me relay it this way. Maybe this might change your view on this. Have you ever had someone try to pitch you to join them on whatever diet they're on at that point in time, where they're like, dude, you gotta do this diet, like the carnivore diet or the paleo diet. Like, you gotta do macro stacks, man, and start counting your macros. Like, for some reason, it's like the weirdest thing. People will die on the hill that their diet is the best diet in the world and it will work for you. You've gotta try it. It's like diets are like almost like cults sometimes, I feel like.
To answer your question, yes, I was keto begrudgingly for a year plus because of my wife.
And who made you do keto? Was it you? You said your wife made you do it? Is that what you said?
Well, she does a lot of the cooking and prepping of food and everything. And she was like, hey, I'm going keto. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm along for the ride. So that's what happened. But to come back to the poem and your point, I don't know if it's so much individualism versus social. For me, it's my individualism versus my regret. Those are the two things that kind of stand out of, are my individual choices things I regret, or are they things that people make me feel like I should regret from the social society, from social norms, from social pressures? Oh, you should do this because that's what society expects of you or doesn't expect of you.
Mm-hmm. And then the defense to that is, hey, this decision was right for me, but it might not be right for you, right? Like, example, let's say you are recommended to take a particular medicine or a product, right? But you like this will cure you, but you are allergic to that product, right? Like you have to take the competitor, which might have less efficacy or something like that. Like that's a prime example, like of not just like an opinion, but factually, there are things that are right for you based on context, but might be wrong for other people, right? And I think that comes back to that line of like, well, this was right for me. It might not be right for you and your family. Like you hear that on YouTube all the time. It's like, yeah, I know. Like I'm not going to just follow you with whatever you say on YouTube, bro.
Although we're sitting here trying to do that. The thing I take in from society's pressures, for lack of a better word, is how I reflect upon the choices I've made by my individual choices, by how I reflect upon society viewing me, how I view myself in the reflection of society's view. There's some overlap there with your regret, with what the future holds for you. If I take this path, am I going to be happy? And I think that emotion is something that bleeds into the poem here a little bit for me. Am I going to be happy? Am I going to be sad? Am I going to be regretful? Are the people around me going to have those feelings as well? Disappointment, excitement. There's a lot of emotion, I think, attached to the choices we make in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now you've kind of started to bleed into that second point. So the first one to me was like a contextual difference. Like, for example, like I said, the diets that maybe don't work for your body type, or the pharmaceutical products that might not be right for you. And you have to search for the one that's actually going to work for your chemistry and such. The second one I think is kind of what you touched upon there, which is the retrospective bias, right? So we assign things in hindsight because we want to be the heroes of our story. So we play up certain elements about how we suffered, but maybe gloss over or don't talk about the mistakes and choices we should have made a little bit better upon the way, because it helps us look better in respect. If you look at the last two lines of this poem, this is what makes me think of it. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, does it make all the difference that he took the one that was actually less traveled by, contextual, the first example, or B, is it the fact that he told you he took the road less traveled? They were the same, but the fact that he told you it was the road less traveled, that's what made all the difference, the perspective and bias that he shares.
I want to come back to what you kind of mentioned before, is the trustworthiness of this, of how we remember our past. We've spoken about before of that our memories are faulty and you don't remember everything perfectly. You remember the choices you made because of where you are now, but those might not be the exact details of how you got there because you already are on a road. Remember, you came to a fork in the road and you're standing there. How did you get there? And then you think about your past. And so it's almost this domino effect of how far back can you trust your memories to all the details that got you to where you are, because you're not on the lazy river going in a circle. You're on the river Styx going forward forever. There is no repeats to this except in your memory, which is going to be faulty.
And there's a term that to describe that. I'd be curious you should ask your wife after recording this if she uses that term in the field. But they call it like a retrospective realization. No, retrospective rationalization is the term. And it's where it's like you said, like there's gaps. We have these gap fills that kind of happen, these memory gaps that happen. And we reconstruct our past sometimes in a way to be more meaningful than arbitrary, right? Like we overlook some of the things to make ourselves, I keep saying we make ourselves the hero, but I think creating a personal myth creates this consistent identity of who you are and how you relate to the world throughout time. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but I think it creates a cognitive dissonance, if you're constantly changing how you make decisions and go about the world, if you can find that consistency, I think that can kind of help you relate to who you are as a person too, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to keep making it a hero story, but there is a consistency in how we attempt to make the decisions.
Yeah, we're cultivating our own story. We're cultivating our own mindset. And you're, I mean, you say hero, but you are the main character. You are the protagonist of this, your own story, most likely. And you want your roads to have meaning. You want your life to have meaning. I think most people do. If you're reflecting on your own life after reading this poem and thinking, did I make the right choices? You want to say yes. Because that's, again, kind of bring it back around, is going to help fulfill those emotional needs that you have. I did the right thing. I'm in a good spot in my life. I'm happy. Because I think that if you're not happy, that's when you have regret. That's when you think back on your life, think, man, I hate my job. And if I had made different choices, and I went through this when I left the teaching profession, I think back, and I love my job now. Had I made the choices to get a different degree, how much further up in the ladder I would be, how much more money I would be making, would I be happier? Would those choices have changed my life? And then I think about, well, there's always consequences, right? Because it's that effective. If you stepped off the road for a moment, you may never get back on the road. And you have to be, I think, content with where you are. Otherwise, you're going to what if your life away.
I feel like, okay, I'm going to guess you choose the second one, as the bias is more important, because what you're talking about now is the result matters. Because like you talk about how I wouldn't have ended up with where I am today, right? Like, let's say you met your wife via the choices that you make. Well, obviously make your wife through the choices that you make, right? And if you had made different choices, she might not be your wife anymore, right? And the result that matters is that you have your current wife, not the choice to be married, or contextually like, oh, okay, well, maybe contextually over here, I would have chosen a different wife. And maybe I would have been just as happy. Maybe it would have been worse. Maybe it would have been happier. I don't know. But the choice over there matters. So let's come back to that original question. Does truth matter more upon contextual? Okay, right? The choice matters more than the result, or the retrospective bias where the result matters more, and we can kind of change the result, the choices that we made to get there to make ourselves make sure that we made the right choice, that we know this is the best wife for us. I realize that wife is a very contentious item to bring up here in the spirit of open and honest conversation, because we always want to believe we have the best spouse we can have found, and many times we do believe that. But like, let's honestly believe that. Is the bias of the result what we're trying to convince ourselves of more so than the choice?
I'm gonna make you mad. I think I'm gonna change my answer, and I'm gonna go with a little bit of A and a little bit of B.
Oh, you cheater!
I kind of figured that at the beginning. I was like, I want to take a stance, but I know at the end I'm gonna have to choose a little of both, because I think that's how life is so complex and messy. It's not a single road. It's not a forking path. And I think that's where it comes down to, is I think you're supposed to realize that it isn't just two choices in life. It is all over the place. At least I feel like that's how my life is sometimes.
I feel I'll take a harder stance. How about that? When I was younger, I was more about the contextual truth, because the facts that you had in the information might have been wrong, but it might have been like you made the best decision you could at that moment because of the facts that you had available, the choice, right? But now, understanding a little bit more about like that need to understand my identity, that myself, that retrospective need to kind of like, I'm gonna call it a defense mechanism. Like, you know how like some people have like real trauma, and they'll like resort to certain behaviors or certain mental processes to protect that identity, that process themselves, or to suppress traumatic memories. This retrospective bias, I think, is really more important to us as human beings, to have believed that we're the truth. And I think it's these stories that we tell and how we pitch them of being the hero and the personal myth making that is what bonds our friendships together with other people. Like, oh, I want to be with other people like me or that exhibit these types of attributes. I almost start to think that that is more important than the contextual context. Contextual context. What the heck? the contextual difference. Sorry.
There you go. It comes down if you want your life to be a triumph or a tragedy.
All right, let us know in the comments what you think is most important. Did you notice those peculiarities, or did you just find like, oh, hey guys, no, this is how you need to interpret it? Let us know in the comments down below. We're always open for that. My name's been Una. Thank you for spending time with us today. Peace.
Peace.